This episode of the Productivityist podcast is brought to you by Text Expander. Visit textexpander.com/podcast to learn more about Text Expander and get 20% off your first year. I'm a big Text Expander fan. You're going to find out why during this episode of the podcast, so stick around. This episode of the Productivityist podcast is also brought to you by Front. If you're ready to transform your team's productivity with efficient email, then you can get started with Front for just $9 a month. I've been using Front for a while with my team. I love it. It's that perfect bridge between email and task management and project. It's just great. I love Front, and I know you will too. I'll share with you how you can get a free trial of Front during this episode of the podcast. But for now, let's get on with the show. Welcome to the Productivityist podcast. I'm your host, Mike Vardy, and this week on the show, Marc and Angel Chernoff return to talk about their next book, which I'm really excited about. They were on before. I'll link to that in the show notes, of course. But they have a new book coming out, 1,000+ little things that happy, successful people do differently, and it's just come out. And we talk about the making of this book because it's a bit different than the making of their previous book. Of course, they run the wildly successful markandangel.com. I've known them for years. They run Think Better, Live Better, this great event that I've had the opportunity to speak at many times before. We just get along really well. In fact, one of the things we had to do, if you listen to the previous episode we're on, is that we know each other so well that they both call me by my last name. Mike is a common first name, so believe me, I'm not... it doesn't bother me or anything like that, but because we're so comfortable, there's a lot of Vardy name dropping during that first episode. So listen to that one. But this one, I'm like, hey guys, you might want to call me Mike this time, just for the sake of this podcast. And I don't know if they struggled with it or not. And maybe they slip one in. You'll have to listen to the episode to find out. But let's get to the conversation. You want to learn the 1,000+ little things, so let's get to them. Here's my conversation with Marc and Angel Chernoff here on the Productivityist podcast. I'd like to welcome Marc and Angel Chernoff to the Productivityist podcast. Thanks for joining me, guys.
Always a pleasure.
Yes, thank you for having us, Mike.
So you guys were on, gosh, it must have been, we're talking a couple years ago now, right? Because Getting Back to Happy came out when? It was 2018, right?
Yeah, so it came out, our last book came out, May of 2018, so about a year ago.
So a year ago.
I guess we recorded the podcast, though, a few months before that. So you're right. It's getting up there.
Yep. And now you've got another book, which we'll jump right out of the gate. And this is not unusual. We're seeing this happen more and more. In fact, Humble the poet, who I met at your event, Think Better, Live Better, he had a self-published book that eventually got published. So this new book, 1,000 Little Things Happy, Successful People Do Differently, was initially self-published, right? So when people go, wow, it's another group of authors that are going to put out a book a year, I don't think this is an anomaly to a certain extent, right?
Yeah, this was actually our very first book that we self-published, many years ago.
Back in 2012, actually.
Yeah, so now Penguin Random House wanted to republish it, and so we made it much better.
Yeah, it's actually, what's interesting about this process, Mike, is that, so our last book, Getting Back to Happy, that came out last May, became a New York Times bestseller. And so that the interest of course of a publisher, when that happens, they say, okay, well, what else can we do with these with these authors? And so our very first book that we self-published in the middle of 2012 was actually a pretty big hit for us, and it's called 1,000 Little Things Happy, Successful People Do Differently. And it was really a social-proofed book. It's definitely a giftable kind of tabletop coffee table book, quick inspiration, right? Pick it up, read a page a day kind of book. But it was a curation of the top posts on our blog. And then we wrote short stories to bridge the gap between a lot of these posts. And so in a sense, it's got this very appealing nature to it, in that we knew that people were going to love it when they read it, because it was a curation of the top posts based on your blog stats and so forth. So we knew it was going to relate to people, and people were going to enjoy it. And so now, like Angel said, it's really this republication of it has been an interesting process, because you're going back, basically 7-8 years in time to what we had written back in the day, and you're giving it a chance with one. we're definitely better writers. Like anything, you got the 10,000 hours in. So, I mean, 7-8 years later, we're better writers than we were back then. We've learned more in our life. And then you have this whole team of professional editors at Penguin Random House working with you to touch up this product, this book that you had put together years ago. And you get to really make it what it could have been originally. And so it's been a fun process, everything from revisiting the old material to updating it and to really fine tuning it to be very, very a professional package. We're loving it.
Well, and I think the other thing too that a lot of writers need to understand is that writing blog posts is very different than writing a book. So if it's a blog posts that are going into a book, it's the way that books are read versus the way blog posts are read are very different, right?
100%. Yes, 100%. And we learned that a lot with Getting Back to Happy. So that book was very much a traditional book. It was not, driven by blog posts or anything like that. It was a book that you would sit and read from front cover to back. So yeah, I mean, even the transition for us, I think just, professionally as writers and coaches, I mean, we had to look at that book writing process a lot differently than we look at our day-to-day, blog writing.
So it's interesting that this book, while written before Getting Back to Happy, is coming out afterwards, because it's almost like when it was initially released, it's like, okay, here's what happy people do differently. And then the subsequent book, which is the one that was traditionally published, Getting Back to Happy, is like, oh, you lost your way. Here's how you get back. In this case, the way it's being released via Penguin Random House is, hey, here, let's get back to happy. Okay, now that you are, let's maintain that. So it's an interesting twist on kind of the story that you're both telling, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I never thought of it that way, but yeah, you're right.
It's definitely a little different. I mean, and what's fascinating too, though, is that the nature of what 1,000 Little Things is was a big proponent of what allowed us to get back to happy, which is the title of the second book, right? Which was happened to be published by Penguin first. But like 1,000 Little Things, like I said, is this giftable, but more so this kind of coffee table quick reference, where you can like literally leverage what you might, use, like maybe even the cliche of like affirmations, right? And like, why are affirmations so powerful, and why would a book like 1,000 Little Things be a great guide? We put 1,000 Little Things together really at kind of the end of a dark season of our life, because what had helped us the most was this ritual of referencing the thoughts and quotes and ideas about life that we generally knew, but we were not able to like kind of reach into our mind and grab at those moments when we needed them most. And so we ended up starting this process of reading our own notes to ourselves, notes that we had taken from various books, everything from Wayne Dyer to Byron Katie and so forth. And we ended up starting this ritual of re-referencing kind of our notes and those moments when we needed them the most, which ultimately became the blog post that we wrote that made it into 1,000 Little Things.
Meal planning is important because it prevents us from being a disappointed wreck when dinner time comes around and we have no clue what to make, or even if we have the ingredients to make the meal. It's a time and a money saver, but most importantly, it frees up valuable brain space. Creating a meal plan prepares us for the week to come and gives us peace of mind that we're organized and can feed ourselves and our family. That's why I do it, and that's why Plan to Eat helps me do it. Your subscription includes access to the Plan to Eat website and fully featured mobile apps on iOS and Android. And Plan to Eat gives you the tools to clip and organize recipes from any website, the ones your family loves and that fit your dietary preferences and needs. And you can create a meal plan around your schedule. Then what happens is the Plan to Eat software automatically creates an organized shopping list based on your plan. So sign up for your free trial at plantoeat.com/timecrafting. That's plantoeat.com/timecrafting. The coupon will be automatically applied to your account and can be used when you're ready to subscribe. It's valid for new customers only. Give Plan to Eat a try today. Okay, we're going to take a break now to talk about one of our sponsors for this podcast and one of the indispensable tools in my productivity toolkit, Text Expander. Text Expander 6.5 for Mac OS and 2.0 for Windows supports a whole new visual editor for snippets. And I have to say that without Text Expander, I would be lost. I've been using it back before it was available for Windows. It was only available for Mac OS. Now it's got iOS. It's got Windows editions. It's great. And the new editor makes it easier to see and edit snippet fill-ins, which are one of my favorite things to do, dates and date math, nested snippets, and so much more. You can insert words, phrases, forms, templates, and more with just a couple of key clicks. That's everywhere you type. And what I love is that I'm able to use this for so many things. In fact, as I'm working on my new book and I'm starting to kind of put things out into the world in terms of saying, hey, I'm working on this new book and I'd be interested with your help, and just these emails that I'm sending to a lot of different places, both personal and impersonal, actually. So both the people that I don't know and the people I do, I can have the key elements in my email already templatized through just a snippet and text expander. So that way I don't miss any details. That's one of the things that I love about it, is that I can type it once, create a snippet out of it, and that way I know I'm not going to forget it. I actually do this with the podcast episode. So when I have a guest on the show, I actually say, hey, your episode's gone live. I have a little, the standard stuff. And then I have like a personalized fill-in that I can do, say, hey, and it actually is titled, say something individual about this episode to the guest, and that's what it's called. And then I just type that in. But then it says, hey, if you want to share this episode quickly and easily, here's the link, and there's a fill-in for that link. And if you want to share the whole episode page, you can do it here by clicking on this link, and then I show that link. So there's lots of different ways to personalize. Once you start using Text Expander, you'll wonder how you live without it. You can take control of your time and productivity by letting Text Expander handle your repetitive typing tasks. There's automatic kind of groups of snippets that you can already use that are already made. And the other thing is it learns what you type too. So any of these phrases that you type regularly, it will make suggestions as to whether or not you might want to, use a snippet for it. And with a name like Productivityist, you know that I use that feature. Text Expander is an indispensable part of my productivity toolkit, and it can be part of yours as well. In fact, you can get 20% off your first year of Text Expander by going to textexpander.com/podcast and check it out there. I am a huge fan of the Text Expander team and what they have to offer, and I know you will be as well. So again, visit textexpander.com/podcast and get 20% off your first year of Text Expander. I'd like to thank Text Expander for sponsoring this episode of the Productivityist podcast. Now let's get back to the show. So let's talk about the idea of lists, because, again, no secret, the posts that appear on your blog, which, obviously some of your best ones, like you mentioned, may make up the new book, 1,000 Little Things. Why are they so attractive to people? Like, especially in the context of, okay, getting back to happy, which, and again, anyone who's listening that wants to go back, please go back. I'll put a link to the show notes in the archive so you can listen to that episode as well, because this will be a nice tandem for you to listen to either, and again, in either order now. So you can do either the way that the books were released or the way they're going to be released. Why are lists so, why do you guys think that lists are something that people just gravitate towards? And how were you able to kind of leverage those lists in this book to kind of help people, understand that these, like, look, you don't have to do everything, just these things?
Mm-hmm. I think it's that quick hit inspiration, right? We're so busy. We have things going on. This is a list post, and this book is great for you to pick up first thing in the morning, read, a couple bullets or even just one page, and you can read more if you want to. But it's that quick hit of inspiration that you need to get your day started or to even finish your day.
Yeah. And the list, the list style definitely allows something to be easily digestible, right? So, we would read a book, like I mentioned Byron Katie, right? So you read Byron Katie's Loving What Is, and then the question is like, how do you take that information and distill it down into something that's easily digestible in that quick minute, right? That you're going to read one page. And so a lot of what we did with our blog and subsequently this 1,000 Little Things, Happy Successful People Do Differently book, is we were looking, again, when we were going through a very dark season of our life, we were kind of taking notes based on the books that we were reading to step through our grief and our adversity. And so our notes ultimately became these blog posts, and the blog posts were things that we ourselves would reread and reference. And so what we needed to do is, what are the key points in these books that we've read that are important to us that we need to keep top of mind in those moments when we need them most, when we need to be able to quick reference them. And so can we put these kind of principles into these lists that are easily referenceable in those moments? And so that's really what 1,000 Little Things became for us as a tool, and then ultimately as a book for others.
I want to talk to you about the process of revisiting this material, because again, it's been written over the course of many years. As you're putting this book together, when you're going through it, and each of you can answer this, I think, separately. you come across something that you wrote, you're like, oh, this is something that we probably, or I probably need to do a bit more of. I forgot that, I forgot about the medicine that I delivered and I need to take some of my own here. Was there any one or two that particularly stood out? Maybe either the list itself or maybe a point that you each realized you're like, oh, you know what? I'm generally very happy. Clearly, you guys, that's kind of your thing with these books, but also, this is something that I probably could stand to do a bit more of.
I think that's the beauty of this work is like it's always great to revisit the content. I mean, for me personally, it's definitely presence. It's so sometimes you get lost in the daily shuffle and busyness of what you have going on. And so I think it's never we're above this work. And so rereading what we wrote in the past and revisiting it, I think it is great because it's content that is evergreen. It's content that you could always reread and take something away from it.
Was there any one thing in particular, though, Angel, that you're like, oh, right, like did you have any of those, or was it just pervasive throughout the whole process for you?
Yeah, nothing specific jumps out to me. I especially love the content on being present and focusing on what you have now. So those really jumped out specifically to me.
Yeah, the presence is a big thing. And that's something like Angel said we constantly struggle with, right? We know, hey, be present, be here now. We've heard it a million times. But how often do we actually practice that? How often are our minds wandering to other times and places? And how is that affecting our ability to be effective in our work and in our relationships, right? And so, it is interesting, again, that the very process of rereading and then rewriting various sections of this book was therapeutic for us, because it was giving us the very dose of medicine that the reader will get, which is, let me dive back into some principles that I'm going to be a little bit familiar with, but I don't practice regularly, that I need to get back on track with. And let me do this consistently, and when you're editing a book, this happens consistently over the course of several weeks, just like building a ritual or a habit, right? You're reading 1,000 little things, 1 page a day for a few weeks. And some of this stuff starts to ingrain in your mind more, and it starts to become more top of mind. So those moments when your mind starts shifting into negativity mode, it's right there, easily retrievable. Oh, okay. Let me bring my focus back to the present moment. Let me handle the battles of just today instead of worrying about the infinite and impossible battles of tomorrow or yesterday, right? And it's those kinds of understandings and principles that are in the book that really just, again, never above it, but always need to be kind of like just kind of hitting one dose at a time of it so that you're keeping it top of mind.
Yeah, the gentle reminder.
The gentle reminders.
One of the things that obviously when this book was written, you guys weren't parents yet, right? Like, so going through the book now, and again, this was self-published initially. Is there anything in there that you're like, oh, we have to put this in here now because we have this set of eyes that now exists as the parents of a son that this needs to be in there for the person out there who, has kids versus, because before you didn't. Is there anything in there that kind of permeated inside the text as opposed to, no, we're just going to we're just going to refine, not really replace much, despite the fact that we're talking years down the road and we've changed and our situation and environment has changed as well?
I would say no. The book itself is probably 30 to 35% new than the old one. So there was a lot of rewriting. For instance, the introduction to the entire book is different, and it's a significant introduction. But as far as parenthood goes, certainly that changes us, right? That changes a person. As human beings, we learn a lot from parenthood. It's very rewarding. It's challenging, but it changes your perception. I don't think that and I'll let Angel chime in too. It didn't really affect the core content of the book, though, in any way whatsoever. Certainly some of the stories that have been added in, some of that like extra 30 to 35%, those edits do involve family, right, dynamics. But as a core of the principles of the book, it did not change.
I think you just interpret the material differently based on your own personal experiences and your dynamic, your family dynamic. So yeah, we didn't write anything specifically to that, but I think it's the way you interpret the content is
like we didn't go back in and say, hey, we're gonna write a section here on parenthood or has it relates to parenthood. So no, that didn't happen.
Yeah, the optics, the perspectives. So as you're reading it, maybe your perspective has changed, just like the reader can look at it and they're going to, I was talking to Austin Kleon recently before I had him on the show. And one of the things he mentions I think he mentioned this in a blog post, is when you've written a book, once you've once you've sent it off, it's no longer your book anymore. So whatever you intend, like whatever your intended message in it is, you might have to, that might be thrown out the window to a certain extent for that one reader that looks at it completely differently, right?
100%. We see that with the blog all the time too. Yeah. We're like, we'll write even something, that just happens in writing in general. You write a short story, right? And it's about some specific part of your life, but somebody reads it and it reminds them of some part of their life, which is a completely different situation. And it's always a beautiful thing. That's why feedback from readers is always so important, like hearing their story. One of the reasons we host Think Better, Live Better, which you mentioned, annually, is that it puts us in a space with 300 people who are like-minded, who are saying, hey, listen, I'm struggling and ready to improve my life, right? Like I know that I have room for growth. And I'm willing to share my story, and I'm willing to kind of be in the presence of others who are on this journey with me. And I mean, that kind of feedback loop that's created in an environment like that, which also can be created through writing, right? Through blog post comments and even just readers sending you emails, is incredible. And it's always amazing to hear how the things that you say in your stories and your thoughts are perceived on the other end in just a different way. And not wrong, just different, and it can be a beautiful addition to the story.
I think that's part of the beauty, is that we all have aha moments or resonate with different things. And so I think this material, though it may not have been written from the same place that you're interpreting it, you can still all of a sudden have that, wow, this reminds me of this situation, and it reminds me that I could do this even better, or maybe I should try this way. So I think that's the beauty in the content, is just you can interpret it depending on what you're currently going through in your own life.
And it gets you thinking, right? It's thought-provoking. I mean, I think the key tool of something that's kind of a tabletop book, a coffee table reference, quick reference, is that, I mean, it's about the ritual of bringing conscious awareness to how you're feeling and thinking, right? And it's challenging some of those perspectives that are sitting in your subconscious mind, waking up and just kind of not feeling like your best self on any given morning, and reading something that can kind of reset you and make you think a little bit differently. And so and how you interpret that, to our point here, is heavily based on how you're feeling in the moment and what medicine you actually need, right, for that moment. So it's even the process of going back and editing the book was very much like that for us. Like, there were definitely sections, of course, that we nixed, right, and we rewrote, but there were plenty of sections, right, that were amazing. we were like, wow, that was a great thought. I mean, that's a great way. That's a great story to back up that thought and explain it all these years later. And so then it was just a matter of copy editing those sections instead of rewriting anything. So an excellent, rereading your own writing years and years later is almost just as interesting, if not more interesting, than reading somebody else's stuff, right? It's almost like a fresh story years later.
Okay, we're going to take another break from the show to talk about Front, which is another one of our sponsors. And I've talked about Front before, and whenever I look at apps that are new, or they're new to me, it's one of those things where I look at them with a bit of hesitation. I'm not, again, I'm more focused on the approach over the application. But what Front has done with email and the workflow that involves, using email and a task management solution, a project management solution, all that stuff, is it's really streamlined things for me. So when I am willing to talk about an app anywhere, let alone as a podcast sponsor, it's got to knock it out of the park for me. And Front has done that. They were founded in 2013, so it's not like they're brand new. And what Front really wanted to do was add collaboration, accountability, and transparency to email. What do I mean by that? And what I think what they mean by that is the idea that, here's an example. I have all of my emails come into Front now. It's the only email app that I use. So I've got my professional stuff, which is outside of Productivityist, my Productivityist stuff, and my personal stuff. Not to mention Facebook, page stuff, and Twitter direct messages. So I see all of this stuff coming into front. It's a communication hub. Then what I can do is from there, instead of me forwarding this stuff to my task management tool, which, by the way, if you need to have a project management tool integrated with Front or a CRM or anything like that, there's more than 50 app integrations that are right there for you to integrate. So it's not like this has to stand alone. Although what Front has done is it's kind of taken email out of its silo anyway. But back to what I was saying is what I can do is let's say, for example, that I get a request for someone to be on the podcast. And I know I've talked about this before. I don't handle those directly anymore, but in the past that's happened. And so there are people that still have that email address there. So instead of me saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to handle this, I can assign it to my assistant to say, hey, and what I can do is assign it. And then in the discussion area, which is great, which actually is part of that thread, that it doesn't go to the person that sends me the email, but it becomes part of this conversation that we're having, this discussion. I can say, hey, Connie, can you please go and respond to this person and let them know one of the following. So there are lots of really cool things that Front offers. The idea of if you want to loop a colleague in to an email, you can do that. You just mention them on the thread. If you want to assign a conversation, like I mentioned, to that person, just remove it from your inbox. You can do that. I just talked about that. If you want to automate that assignment, so all similar messages go to that person. So let's say I get another podcast, that can happen. I never have to spend another minute. So if I want to automate an assignment, or if you want to automate an assignment, so that all similar messages, so that podcast thing I was just talking about, you want to make sure that those messages always go to that other person, and then you never have to spend another minute tagging them. No problem. That can do that too. Front can do all of that. Front has really streamlined the way we approach email here at Productivityist, and I know that it can help you and your team as well. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to share with you how you can get a free trial of Front right now. Just go to frontapp.com/timecrafting and start your free trial today. Again, if you've been following my work for a while, you know that I don't say, hey, here's a new fancy app that you can try. I don't take that kind of thing lightly. I'm a big believer in what Front has to offer. And, when I see an app that I can get behind, I dig right in. When I see any kind of initiative that I can get behind, I dig right in. Front is one of those apps. Front is one of those initiatives. It's really what it's done is it's changed my mind about how I view email in terms of checking email first thing in the morning. Go ahead. Front gives you the capabilities to move things around. In terms of using email as a task management tool, frankly, I've been doing that a little bit now because Front gives me that capability. So not everything needs to go into my task management tool of choice, my to-do list app. So give Front a try. And it's going to only be $9 a month. You could start with Front for only $9 a month. But if you're ready to transform your team's productivity with more efficient email and more effective communication on the whole, give Front a try. Frontapp.com/timecrafting. Start that free trial today. I'd like to thank Front for sponsoring this episode of the Productivityist podcast. Now let's get back to the show. I want to dive into the idea of the little things, okay, for a little bit. So, why do you think people are going to look for big things, right? That's what a lot of people will do. I want to be happy. Getting back to happy is an example of, okay, good. Let me work on that. I'm not feeling that way. And I think we all get to that point, whether in a big way or a small way throughout our lives. You're looking at this and it's 1,000 little things happy, successful people do differently. So there's two things in there that, kind of can freak people out. One, doing something differently. I'm used to, I've done things the same this whole time. Differently sounds scary to me. It's change. And then the idea of, how long is this going to take? I want a big change. So can we speak to those a little bit about those two words and how they can kind of affect people when they're looking at making a change towards either, let's using example for my audience, for me personally, I want to manage my time better. Oh, this is these little things I can do and it's going to change my whole perspective on time. I don't know about that. In your case, it's little things. It's going to take some time. Oh, differently? I don't know. That seems like 1,000 things differently. That seems like a lot, whether they're little or big. So let's break down some of those barriers that I think people have, so that they can say, no, you know what? This is not as scary as it sounds like it could be. This is something that's doable.
I mean, I want to change my time management. I mean, that seems overwhelming. Like, where do I start?
Right.
It seems so big. And so in this book, we try to make them smaller. We make them little. So they are things that you can try and say, okay, this worked for me, or no, this doesn't work for me. And differently, because if you're doing the same thing over and over again and not getting the results you want, well, it's time to try something new.
Right. Keep doing what you're doing. You can keep getting what you're getting. Right. I mean, that's how it works. So yeah, I mean, I agree with Angel entirely. Right. Break up complex concepts and strategies for living and working into easily bite-sized chunks that can be digested one day at a time over the course of a couple months. Making what would be otherwise a arduous, read or adjustment in your life, right? Doing something differently, it makes that process a lot easier. It makes it much more seamless because you're just taking it one step at a time.
And also, it makes it more manageable. Like, you could, if you start off small, you're more likely to be able to continue it going forward. I mean, the example that comes to mind is, you say, oh, I want to wake up 30 minutes early every day so I can be more productive and get other things done, so I'm not rushing around. But in actuality, that's a lot. 30 minutes earlier, especially if you're not a morning person, that's a lot to get up that much earlier. But what if you just started with getting up 5 minutes earlier, and getting used to that? And can you feel the difference by just getting up 5 minutes earlier, and then slightly increasing that as you feel comfortable?
Right. Over the course of a couple months, right? I mean, so you're not making a big adjustment all at once. Maybe even 6 months, right? I mean, you literally don't have to rush it. But that's the principle of the book. That is definitely the general principle. And doing things differently, of course, again, is that you have to make some changes, right? You have to make some shifts, but the shifts need to be small because we want those big shifts. We want big change. We want to get to like that destination. But we all know that, inherently that it's the journey, not the destination. And the journey can only happen one day at a time. And we're never gonna leapfrog the journey, right, to get to where we want to go. So it's like, if we can just break things down and we can take it at a consistent rate, and one step at a time, what kind of results can we get? And the answer is great results. And so that really is what the book is about. It's about those right reminders and those right steps that happen in small chunks, right?
Yeah, because if you make them so small, it reminds me of the saying, day by day, nothing changes, but when you look back, everything is different. Mm-hmm. So if you make them so small that you're not feeling a major difference every day in terms of like, oh, this is really hard. If you make them small and then you're consistent, you'll be able to look back and be like, oh, wow, I got through that. I did that. I made that improvement.
Right. You got to do the hard things to be happy. Right, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely.
Those things that nobody else can do for you. And the things that are tough, the things that make you question how much longer you can hold yourself together and push forward on those really tough days. But it's a lot easier to push forward like that when you're taking small steps and when you've been consistent with it. And when you can realize, like with a book like 1,000 Little Things, you can say, you know what, I'm gonna handle 1 page a day. And then just naturally, you get a few weeks into it and you've done 1 page a day and you can look to see where you are in the book. And then you feel like skipping a day or you're feeling really down and you can look back and it's almost having like a little don't break the chain, right, calendar where you're doing your check marks every day and noticing your progress. Like you can visually look at the book and say, you know what, I've read these pages for this many days. I'm not going to stop, today. And it's going to be good for you, right? Like the perspective shift is going to be helpful, especially when times are tough. That's when you need it most. So yeah, it's a great little tool. We've loved it in our life and we know, and that's the other thing about the book too. You've mentioned the republication of it. It sold really well. I mean, that's why Penguin picked it up, right? I mean, we sold about 40,000 copies of it self-published, which is pretty good, So it's a book that's definitely related and resonated with a lot of people.
As we get close to wrapping up here, I want to touch on something that I think is rather unconventional for people to do, but I think it's also undervalued when it comes to the to-do list. And actually, it's funny. I'm going to peel a bit behind the curtain here. All three of us are part of a mastermind group. So we get together once a month and we talk about things. And, we talk about to-do lists came up in our most recent conversation. And one of the things that I think that people probably should do on their to-do list, but don't because they think of very tactical, technical tasks are things that you would mention in this book, and things that are more human than, let's say, technical or just routine. So traditional, let's say. So do you put on your to-do lists or have triggers that remind you to do, like, one thing? I did a video called "Make a Difference in Someone's Day." If you add this one thing to your to-do list, it'll make your to-do list better. And I literally have this on my to-do list, like, make a difference in someone's day. And it's funny, it's not like I set out to do that necessarily, or at least initially, but now it's happening, like, through past actions. I've seen it where someone's like sends me an email saying, "Hey, Mike, thanks so much for this." I'm like, "Oh, good. I can check that off as something that I did," which sounds rather, like, oh, there's maybe a bit of narcissism there or whatever, if someone interprets it from their end. But for me, it's like, hey, look, this is something that I feel, if I do this every day, then my day is going to be that much better. Do you put things like that, on your to-do list, so that it's like, hey, I'm trying to instill this and make sure this is something that is something that I do every day? Or is it just become, do you have any other triggers that are set up? And do you advise people to say, hey, look, if you want to incorporate these 1,000 little things, add a couple of them to your to-do list so that they become habitual?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think, the things we know, the simple things we know often get lost in the to-do list because they're not on our to-do list. One personal example for me is, spend at least 15 minutes of uninterrupted quality time with my son. So that may seem silly to put on there because, of course, we live together, we see him, but it's so easy to get lost in, making dinner, doing this, packing lunch, shuffling everybody around and not really spending that quality time. Hey, what was the best part of your day? Having the quality conversations. And yes, does it have to be on your to-do list forever? No, because eventually it's at top of mind and you're just doing it because that's what you do. It's on your to-do list. You already know it, just like you. You make it a point to be kind and caring and do something nice for somebody else. Well, now you probably don't have to put that on your to-do list because now it's at top of mind. That's just something you do. So if the opportunity arises, you take that extra step because you're like, oh yeah, I want to do this daily. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's the beauty of 1,000 Little Things. It's the beauty of what you guys are talking about here. I mean, the most modern science that I've read says that it takes about 66 days for a human being to form a habit, right? So spend the next 66 days focusing on the positive side of your life, doing the positive things you need to do for yourself, right? One day at a time, and you will undoubtedly rewire your brain. That's what this is about. And yeah, I mean, Angel's point about putting those little things on the to-do list or putting them on the calendar where you can see them. Yeah, I mean that's exactly how we do it, right? That's how this book was built. Like read the stuff, take the notes on it, put it in a place that you can easily reference it and keep it top of mind, so that you can practice it often in your life, and eventually it becomes automatic pilot.
So the new book is called 1,000 Little Things Happy, Successful People Do Differently. I guess the new old book or the old new book by Marc and Angel Chernoff. Where can they pick up the book, and where can everyone keep up with you? Because there's lots more going on. You've still got the annual Think Better, Live Better event. You're writing on your blog consistently. There's lots of stuff going on. And I know you've got other irons in the fire as well. Where can people keep up with your work and pick up this book and your previous work as well?
Yeah, so you'll be able to pick up the book anywhere books are sold. So check out Amazon, Barnes & Noble, any bookstore locally around you. And then, yeah, check out our website. We update the blog 1 to 2 times a week. And the website is marcandangel.com, and that's Marc with a C.
Yeah, just Google Marc and Angel, you'll find us.
Thanks again for joining me today on the Productivities Podcast, guys.
Thank you so much.
Mike.
And there we go. Again, always a pleasure to talk to those two. I have to say that they've been such huge supporters of my work and they're just great friends. And I've had such a wonderful opportunity to be part of so many great people's lives. And I would include Marc and Angel in that group for sure. If they ever need anything, I'm there for them, and vice versa. So they are truly inspirational people. If you get a chance to go to Think Better, Live Better, it's in San Diego. Do it. I've been there every year. and it's been fantastic. So check out all the links that we talked about in the show notes, as well as some of the other kind of takeaways. And by the way, thanks to Connie for putting the show notes together for that. I really do appreciate it. And thanks to John Polster for producing the show. Sometimes he gets episodes later than usual. This time, not so much. This time he actually got them when he needed them, and that's a big deal. So big thanks to John for producing this episode, and big thanks to you for listening. Big thanks to the sponsors, by the way, too. We have a sponsor, of course, Text Expander. I love Text Expander, and you will too. Go to textexpander.com/podcast to get 20% off of your first year. And I also want you to check out our other sponsor for this episode. And that sponsor, of course, is Front. And what I encourage you to do is, again, much like you're going to do with Text Expander, I encourage you to go check out what Front has to offer. If you go to frontapp.com/timecrafting, you can start your free trial of Front today. And you won't regret it. So check out both our sponsors. Thanks to both of them for sponsoring this episode of the show. And again, thanks to you for listening. That is it for this episode of the show. I'm Mike Barty, the host of the Productivityist podcast, reminding you to stop guessing and start going. We'll see you later.